Good morning, councillors. Today we start the Governance Committee meeting. Firstly, I would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to the City Governance meeting of the 19th of October 2022. I declare this meeting open at 9:46. I would like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcast and audio recorded. We'll move on to item 3, attendance and leave of absence. I have all three, I believe, Councillor Bannon, Councillor Raven and Councillor Jeremiah on Teams today. We've confirmed Councillor Raven and Jeremiah, but we're just not sure if Councillor Bannon is there.
I'm here.
Excellent, thank you very much. Today, could I please get a mover that the three councillors be joined? No? Okay, we don't need to do that apparently. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on. Item 4, declarations of conflicts of interest. I now refer to the declaration of conflicts of interest. Do any councillors wish to declare a conflict of interest against any reports today's agenda? There being none, thank you very much. We'll move on to our items. Our first one today is the Invest Logan. This is a confidential report of 5.1. I now refer to 5.1. Can the Director, Mr. Robert Stratton, please enter into discussions? I note that the item 5.1 is confidential and it is considered necessary to take the discussion of this report into a closed session. This matter of the Local Government Regulations 2012 under section 254J3 being the local government's budget. Do any councillors wish to move into closed session for this item, and if intended to discuss an overview of different to the prepared motion as displayed on the screen, please provide an updated wording. I remind councillors that if there's no desire to discuss the confidential matter, there is no requirement to move into closed session. Thank you, Mr. Power. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Bradley has now seconded. I will now open the floor to all those in favour. Please raise your hand. That's everybody carried in the room. Councillor Bannon, how do you vote?
4.
And Jacob, I just can't... Yep, awesome. I can see all of you. Thank you very much. The world of technology, thank you very much. Councillor, please note that we are now in closed session and the audio recording will be turned on. We're all good down the back there? down the back? Thank you. So we just put the motion on the board?
We just need to do a tabling.
Yes. So, councillors, I just make note that we have to table the placemat document that you received today, the A3 one, in the confidential report. Thank you. And there should be a motion up on the screen. Yes? That's the correct one. This is just for the confidential document to be received. So could I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Kransky, Councillor Bradley has seconded. Can I get a show of hands, all those in favour, for just the document that we received? That has been carried.
4.
Thank you very much. Just bear with us and we'll get the next motion up on the board. Councillor, there's a motion on the board. Those on Teams, you should have received this. This is in your documentation. Is there a mover for the report's motion displayed on the screen? Councillor Bradley has moved the motion. Is there a seconder to? Councillor Powell has seconded the motion. I will now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So I'm just going to go around the room because there's some that have got their hands down. So we've got Councillor Mayor Power, Councillor Bradley, Councillor Russell, Councillor Kransky, Councillor Hall, Councillor Fraser, Councillor Wilcox, Councillor Harrimeyer, Councillor Bannon, Councillor Raven, you're against?
Abstain, and I'd like to put a reason on the record.
Would you like to proceed?
I'd like to abstain because I've not been provided adequate information to make a decision on this matter.
Councillor Hall, Lane?
Abstain for the same reason, thank you, Madam Chair.
And Councillor Stem?
Abstain for the same reason.
And I'll abstain as well, thank you. So where that leave us? 4? That motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. That was a long session. We'll move on to item 5.2. Thank you. Pathway Modernisation Project Business Case. It is a confidential report. Just bear with me a second while we just have a little bit of a catch up here. I will now refer to item 5.2. Can the director, Mr. Robert Stratton, please enter discussions? I note that this item 5.2 is a confidential and is considered necessary to take the discussion of the report into a closed session. This matter relates to the Local Government Regulations 2012, Section 254J3, the local government budget. Do any councillors wish to move into a closed session for this item? If intended to discuss the overview of this different motion that is displayed on the screen, can you please provide an updated wording? I remind councillor if there's no desire to discuss the confidential matter, then there is no requirement to move into a closed session. I now open the floor to the councillors. Is there any councillor that wish to move into a closed session? No. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I will get the director to please open the discussion.
Thank you, through the chair. Noting the report was confidential, I think we just moved to voting on the recommendations.
Do we need Ricky to talk at all? Okay. Thank you, councillors. There's a motion up on the board. Can I just ask those on Teams, have you got those motions? You're ready to vote?
All good.
Jacob and John? Okay, cool. Thank you. Councillor, there's a motion on the board. Can I have a mover displayed for the motion on the screen? Councillor Bradley has moved the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hall has seconded those. Can I ask those all in favour to please show your hands?
For.
That has all been carried unanimously. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Mr. Rick. Thank you, councillors. We're moving quite quickly now. So we move on to item 5.3, City of Logan's Charitable Trust, appointment of new directors. Could the director please enter into this discussion? Thank you, Mr. Robert.
The acting corporate governance manager, Anita White's going to talk to this report.
Thank you. Welcome, Anita.
Thank you through the chair. Good morning, councillors. Just good morning. Item 5.3 today relates to the appointment of new directors to the City of Logan Charitable Trust. As you're aware, the board was re-established earlier this year with new board members, and they've been working since then on their vision and purpose, and we'll be sharing that with councillors at a briefing in November. The Trust currently has approximately $325,000 for distribution to the Logan community. Can I note that they must be to organisations who have a deductible gift recipient status, and they must use the grant for a purpose set out in their constitution. That said, there's a link to an application form for the Trust on Council's grants website. And there'll also be an article in the next edition of My Logan. I think the board members would be delighted to receive some applications to further consider. Unfortunately, however, and the purpose of this report is that the board has received 2 resignations, and therefore the board has undertaken a further recruitment process. They've selected 2 new directors, being Kathleen Janicek and Grant Tanham-Kelly, and they wanted to advise council of that decision. Could I just say that it is a right of theirs to appoint directors under their constitution. Ms Janicek is the current principal at Woodridge State High School, having held that position since 2018, and Mr Tanham-Kelly is a fellow of the CPA Australia, or Chartered Accountant, with strong financial skills and a strong previous board experience. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms White. I have Councillor Lane and then Councillor Stepp.
Thanks very much through you, Madam Chair. Kathleen Janicek is an amazing woman. She's a great principal. She's made great inroads into Woodridge State High School since taking over as principal. She is an empathetic person. She is a woman of great standing and maturity. I did have some concerns around whether or not I would be conflicted, given that she would be on the Mayor's charitable trust when it came to the school applying for funding, but it's the PNC applying for funding, and we've worked our way around that. I welcome her to the board, and I hope that that money starts rolling out to community groups quite soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I tend to agree. I can't wait to see some of the funding go out to our local organisations. Councillor Stepp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. Just a side question. In terms of, I did a big search on just to find a bit more about the actual trust itself and who can apply, etc. But I couldn't find any information online about that. All you get is the application. So is there a reason why there's not information on there about who can apply, what the situation is? Because I'm concerned that obviously we want to start using the funds, and the more information we can get out there, the better. But there really isn't anything other than the application form that I could find either through the grants site or just in general, please.
Thanks for that feedback, Councillor. I think that's really valid. What I can say is that I understand the board's currently working on their website, but I think they wanted to really check in with councillors to make sure that their vision and purpose was right and aligned with what council's vision was for the trust before they sort of went live with that. So I think it's not too far away, so I hope that that will answer. At the moment, the only criteria in terms of application is that the deductible gift status, and so any applications from organisations that have that status would be welcome at this stage.
So since we get that vision through effectively, then they can start distributing, because the funds aren't, are people actually applying for funds and funds are being given out at this stage?
Thank you. Through the chair, there are a couple of applications currently with the board for their consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stamp. I raised the same questions when we were doing the gender review about the page. I actually went onto it as well. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm just curious, are we able to be informed if any applications are declined at all, or how is that process worked out?
Can I take that on notice, Councillor? I'm not sure, but I'll take it on notice if I may.
Thank you. Ms White, will they advertise also those that have won the funding as well?
Could I take that one on notice as well? There's a board meeting this Friday. I can ask those questions.
Thank you, that would be appreciated. I just want to check with the gentleman on Teams. Any questions?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillors, there's a motion on the screen. Do I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Lane has moved it. Do I have a seconder at all? Councillor Russell has seconded the motion. Can I, by a show of hands, see all those in favour, please raise your hands. Excellent. Excellent. That's all been carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to item 5.4. We'll move on to item 5.4, and Ms White, please enter the discussion for this report, please.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Item 4 proposes amendments to the contract manual and repeal of a council policy. I'm very excited to report that the new delegations framework will take effect from 1 November, and one of the improvement opportunities we identified through that was bringing together the current policy around disposal of a council asset and the contract manual, which council has previously endorsed as part of its move to strategic contracting under the local government reg. What the amendments to the contract manual propose is twofold, and that is a process related to disposal of assets. And can I be very clear that this isn't disposal of land? That will always require a report back to council. This is for plant and equipment, IT equipment, and demolition of buildings. So often we will have something quite specific in reports around demolition of buildings, but this is allowing some management of assets when they reach end of life, but within some financial authorisation limits. So there'll be some controls around that. Please note, I have covered that it doesn't cover sale of land. There's also some amendments that have been made by the procurement team to align the contract manual with our sustainability framework. So that's the two drivers for the amendments presented to you today, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms White. I have Councillor Bradley and then Councillor Lane. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm just curious, on page 15 of the report, it talks about non-current asset means exit. Is that to comply with accountancy standards? If someone can answer, please.
The term non-current assets comes from the accounting standards. Carolyn will be very proud of me. We had to give it some meaning because it doesn't mean anything to most people. So that's why we've defined it to include plant and equipment, but not land.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. That's answered your question. Excellent. Councillor Lane.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Through you, the demolition of property, is that by a council decision, or is that the org decides we think this is end of life, we're going to demolish the property and not run it past council, as in council laws?
There'll be some financial limits proposed for that, such that it would be, and I'll have to come back to you on what the proposed limits are, but it would mean that there would be a delegation. So if something on the books was worth $10,000, then we wouldn't be bringing a council report for that, because if you take that to its logical conclusion, that would mean that we'd be bringing a lot of reports to council to dispose of what are obsolete assets. And so I think it's around over 100,000 that would be looking to bring reports back to council. Well, that might be the current one, but I'll come back to what that limit is, but not a lot of reporting on it except where it's a big value.
Thank you. My reasoning behind that is I have an asset sitting over there that I'm trying to get rejuvenated, and I would hate to see it crumble because it was under a demolition order that didn't come through us. Yeah.
Appreciate that feedback, councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Thank you, Ms White. Is there any further questions, guys, on team?
No.
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor, there is a motion up on the screen. Is there a mover for the motion that is displayed? Councillor Stamp has moved the motion. Councillor Wilcox has seconded the motions. I will now open the floor to vote. Could I have those all in favour please raise your hands? That's excellent. That's carried. Thank you very much. That concludes Ms White's part. Does anybody have any general business for the acting corporate manager at all? No? Ms White, do you have any general business for us? Thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Ask that 5.7 be done next. I have to get ready for another occasion, I guess you could call it, at the swimming pool. So I want to talk to 5.7. So if we could do this and then I could go.
Mr Powell, can you just bear with me because I don't think we have the council officers in the rooms. Caroline, could you enter into this discussion for 5.7? We just want to bring it up for Mr Mayor so he can attend a function or an event that he has to. So please bear with us for a second. So, councillors, with your indulgence, we're going to move to item 5.7, asset write-off of the shack. Could Ms Bugg please enter into discussions?
Thank you, Chair. Item 5.7 is the asset write-off of an asset known as the shack. The asset in this report was developed at the Browns Plains Waste and Recycling Facility using materials received at the landfill. The structure was predominantly used as a lunchroom and also to provide an area for group presentations. The uses of this facility were incorporated into a facility built in 2015, and as such, the shack became redundant in late 2016. Due to safety and structural integrity concerns, the shack was demolished. However, the write-off, so the technical component of removing the value from the asset registers, didn't occur at this time. So this report is seeking approval to write the asset off from the register, from the asset register, to a value of $142,000.
Thank you, Ms Bugg. I have Councillor Powell to have a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I read this report, a lot of concern came to me regarding the current asset cost versus the report that says it was not built to any sort of approved plan, design or specification. The structure was used in outdoor staff lunchroom and to host school groups for waste education. Accept that, but obviously the question is, how was it built and how did it accrue such a cost when there was no plans, design or specification? How does that happen? Did we just build something and rack up $180,000 worth of costs? Not approved, not a great signal to the rest of the city, and obviously this was a safety hazard right from day one, not now. How does that happen? Which officers were asleep at the wheel when we build such a building like that without any approval, without any plans, without any design or anything? How does that happen?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Obviously the shack was built in 1995 and used by the council staff in 1999, but I'll hand this over to Robert to answer. Was that good, Caroline? I thought you might like that.
Thank you for your question, Mayor Power. We were hoping to have Michael Asnikar here to talk to this report, but he's not, so we all talk to it instead. I wasn't here then. I can imagine, as the report indicated, it was built from recycled materials really to showcase what can be done with recycled materials. Wow, talk about timing. It was built with recycled materials, so to showcase what could be done. I guess in relation to the valuation, I'd have to probably have a look at the fixed asset register, but it probably has been subject to a number of valuations along the way, Mayor Power. So
what you're suggesting is it's a false economy valuation because it's valued at 180. It's not. It hasn't been built to plan. There's no design. You know, I don't know where the valuation gets at 180 when it's not livable, it's not habitable, it's not. It's basically in your report. It's a safety hazard. Where does it get to be $180,000 when there's no approval? There's nothing on it. I just, if it's like my kids, you know, out the back build a cubby house. I just don't understand the logic in valuing it $180,000, and yet, you know, we have to knock it down because it's, it's a safety hazard.
You raise a good point. I mean, part of the valuation process should have been an assessment of the building, and it's probably the case, or I think it's most certainly the case, that it should have been impaired or written down some time ago based on those safety concerns. Clearly, it wasn't. It was still on the asset register at a written down value of $142,000, which leads us to the report today. I guess your point is well taken with regard to applying values to buildings moving forward, to making sure the rig is there to ensure that the valuations represent the fair value of the asset.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. I will note in the opening lines of this report, it does say that the asset has already been demolished. So we're just doing the correction on the books. Thank you. I have Councillor Lane, Councillor Kransky, Councillor Hall, Councillor Raven.
Thanks very much to you, Madam Chair. In reading this report, I was I suppose I was a little bit apprehensive because we're talking about writing off a shed that I never saw, that was done with recycled material that has a value that's far above some people's houses, quite frankly. And it wasn't picked up once in the last 4 years or 5 years that we hadn't written it off, even under administrator, a time when the organisation got to breed and got to assess what was going on. I have some concerns around it. Obviously, I'm going to support the motion to write it off because it's already been demolished. But I've got questions. Where did the materials go? Did it go back into the recycle mark to be put out as 184 or 140k somewhere else on a local project? Did it get given to community groups? What happened with the stuff? Was it just recycled back into the mark?
Yeah, through your chair. Sorry, I was a bit late. So the materials, once it was dismantled, were recycled. So all the tin and timber, that was all recycled again. And what was the second question? Sorry. Oh, the pickup.
No, that's fine. If it was recycled and it went back into the recycling market to be resold, then it's not a written off asset. It's actually a profit for the business.
Yeah, well, the tin would have gone back to our metal recyclers, so it wouldn't have gone through the Logan recycling market. That would have been recycled through our metal recycling contract. The timber, some of that may have been sold back through the recycling market, and then any residual waste would have been landfilled, but the majority of the structure was recycled. I do remember that. Yeah, and in terms of picking up, it did come to my attention only relatively recently that this was still on our asset register. Yes, I would have liked that to be highlighted earlier, of course. And putting my unqualified asset accounting hat on, I suspect that the valuation given to this structure was simply if this structure had been built under commercial rates at a standard, the cost of that asset would have been what we're looking at in the report. So I suspect that was the simple way in which it was valued. Well, the filter on the picture probably gives that impression. Yeah, so I mean the purpose of building it was for a good intent, and it was to showcase how recycled materials could be reused, to build a structure. But of course, it didn't have any building approval, there were potential safety risks, and yeah, and heaven forbid, you know, should the roof have caved in on somebody, and we knew it was, you know, not up to code, then yeah, we really had no choice but to dismantle it at the time.
Thank you so much, Robert. After finding out about this, was there an audit done on all council facilities and assets to ensure that there's no others sitting out there that should have been written off?
There's an annual. The answer to the question is there's an annual stock take. Councillor Lane, we missed this one. Yes.
Thanks for that sassiness, Councillor Lane. I think that's excellent. Councillor Kransky.
Thank you. Don't worry, mine's not such a curly one. But I might ask Carolyn this one. Carolyn, I thought this report came up to council already because I remember us discussing the fact that the building had in fact been removed and that this was effectively an administrative process for council. So did we vote on something similar but different?
Something similar but different.
And what was that, Carolyn?
Something out of the roads area. I can't recall exactly what building it was. So.
Okay, but this should be the end of this one. It just seems that we're putting a lot of resources into something that's no longer there. Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think Councillor, Robert would like to enter the discussion on that one.
Just to reaffirm, it was a building at Marsden Depot. That it was the same situation. We obviously need to have a look at how we do stock takes on buildings. So there was a building at Marsden Depot which was the same situation.
Thank you, Robert. That makes sense. I've got it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kransky. I have Councillor Hall, then Councillor Raven.
Oh, it's too bad the mayor left the room. I was about to say, like, I've got a park behind a retirement village, and I was receiving complaints that the toilet at the park had no roof. And I checked with council officers, and apparently no toilet there exists. There's nothing there in that park because it's actually next to a jetty. I went down and investigated, and it was found there was not only a funder box, someone had constructed a full gazebo, cemented to the ground. I had no option but to just simply knock down the funder box because obviously that wasn't compliant. I left the gazebo, but sometimes things just pop up out of nowhere in the ground and just get built and on council assets. So, you know, I'm surprised this one did as well.
I think that means that we need to have a bit of a review of our assets. Councillor Raven, are you there?
I am, Madam Chair, thank you. And a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it does sound like, Robert, that we need QTC to do a full review of our asset write-off processes. But then we won't let staff come in to answer questions about it. We'll just talk to QTC about it.
Councillor Raven, I think that's enough. Okay, I think that's all. No further questions, councillors? Councillor Bradley has moved the motion that is up on the board. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lane has seconded the motion. By a way of show of hands, can I see all those in favour, please? Scotty?
4.
Thank you. Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors, for allowing me to go out of sequence there. So now we'll go back to, I believe, 5.5. Eddie Denman is going to enter the discussions for this report. For this, Councillor Bradley, I will note that down. So we're going to discuss 5.5, the Procurement and Appropriations Special Committee meeting recommendations as of the 21st of September 2022. Thank you, Eddie.
Through the chair, I take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Excellent work. So Councillor Bradley has moved the motion that is on the board. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Heremiah, is that you're moving or would you like to ask a question?
Seconding.
Seconding. Councillor Heremiah has seconded. Can I, by way of show of hands, please get all those that are in favour?
4.
That's everybody. Just noting that Mayor Powell has left the room now to attend his meetings. Well done, Eddie. That was an awesome report. Does anybody have any business for the Acting Administration Manager at all? None? Do you have any for us? Excellent. You can go back to work. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. Just waiting for Ms Bugg to join us. Councillors, we're just going to move on to item 5.6, which is the financial performance report for August 2022. Please note that there is a confidential attachment to this report. If we do not wish to move into confidential, do we? Sorry, it's only the attachment. Ms Bugg, would you like to enter into the discussion, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, councillors. Item 5.6 is the financial performance report to the end of August 2022. Firstly, just in relation to risks, we continue to note the risks raised in over the recent months that are still apparent for council. In addition to this, we are starting to understand the costs associated with the new electricity contracts, and a review is currently occurring to quantify any variance expected to current year's budget. In relation to operating surplus, you'll note that we are running above budget overall in operating surplus, predominantly driven by a revenue which is 5% above year-to-date budget. Most of those variances are being driven out of the Logan Water operations area. However, amendments will be made to those figures at first budget amendment. It's also interesting to see the impact of the significant interest rate rises. We're currently $1 million over budget, given the steep increases in official interest rates. That adjustment will also occur in the first budget amendment. Just noting from June, our interest rates that we were receiving on our QTC funds were 0.6%. In June, that has moved to 2.06%. Also, in the revenue space, DA fees are still running above year-to-date budget by $768,000, and we'll continue to watch that particular area because it's quite a surprise that it's still in front of budget. However, if it does drop off due to economic circumstances, then the additional fees and charges or interest rates will counter that. Other variances are mainly timing, and they'll level out over the coming months. Expenses are a variance to budget of $3.2 million, or 3% of the year-to-date budget. Majority of these variances are timing, and they will be revised at the first budget amendment to better reflect the expected expenditure patterns. On that note, I will take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms Bugg. I have Councillor Bradley and then Councillor Lane. Councillor Bradley, may you start?
Thank you. Through the chair. On page 57 refers to the sundry debtors. I'm just curious the change in figures from August last year to August this year. In the pie chart.
So the pie chart reflects the ageing of the debts. Each year we will have different size debts moving through 30, 60, 90 days. So that's just a reflection of what invoices are raised at a particular point in time.
Is it possible to talk to it? What your thoughts are on?
I could probably have a look at what's driving that and, and
I
provide
appreciate
that
knowing
information
because
to
I
you.
mean it's just a little bit different from going from which one is it? The
90 days.
90 days.
Yes. I'll have a look at that and get the details.
It's doubled, so I'm just wondering what the trend is.
Councillor Bradley, are you okay for Ms Bugg to come back to you? Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Lane?
Thanks very much. In reading this report, I wanted to recognise that there was a significant event in February that would have impacted council's money figures and repairs to roads, to bridges, to facilities, support for residents, and taking that all into account and then reading this report, thank you very much for the hard work that your team does. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And coming out on top and having some money left over is a really great outcome, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Yes, the floods have definitely impacted us as council. I'd like the community to recognise that we're still working extremely hard for you as a councillor as well. So thank you, Ms Bugg. Is there any further questions, councillors? Those on Teams, you're all good?
No questions.
Thank you.
Pete.
Sorry, Councillor Bannon?
No, I just said I was peachy.
Oh, thank you very much for being peachy. Councillor, there is a recommendation on the board. Councillor Bradley has said that she is happy to move this motion. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Stemp has moved seconded the motion. Can I have, by way of show of hands, all those in favour?
4.
Excellent, that's carried. Thank you very much. Before Ms Bugg leaves, does anybody have any general business for the Finance Manager? There being none, thank you. Ms Bugg, do you have any for us?
Not today, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillors, we're just going to go to that one late report. If Ms White could please enter the discussions for 7.1, which is the amendment of council expenses and entitlement procedure. Sorry guys if you were unaware, 7.1. Ms White, could you please enter discussions?
Thank you, and through the chair, firstly, councillors, apologies for a late report. As you know, I've been working on a holistic review of the councillor expenses policy with you over the last few months, and indeed the first draft of the amended policy is on the agenda for our briefing workshop tomorrow. My aim is to present an amended policy to you for consideration at next month's City Governance Committee. I interpreted the resolution of last month's meeting that a report be presented to a future committee rather than the next committee, and so as acting Corporate Governance Manager, I can only take on board the opportunity that we be more specific with language in future resolutions. That said, the report presents options regarding amendment of clause 3.12 of the current councillor expenses and entitlements procedure relating to general promotional items. I've identified for council a number of options, and there may be others, and I'd be happy to take that feedback. I'll hand back to the chair.
Thank you, Ms White. I've got Councillor Heremiah on Teams. I know that he's driving this, so I'll hand it over to you, Councillor Heremiah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the recommendation from council officers today is a positive outcome. We've been looking at reforming how this councillor expenses and entitlements procedure works in council to get a better outcome. And it's been an ongoing process. And finally, we have a date where we will have a report that will be in committee for councillors to discuss and debate. Now, I was a bit concerned about this report and its lateness. In the last committee, we voted to bring back a report regarding the councillor expenses and entitlements procedure in this committee round. Now, when the original agenda went out, there was not that report that was requested by council, and that request was ratified at ordinary council. So I emailed the director and asked why and where is this report? And then shortly afterwards, I received an email saying that a late report has been handed in. So I wanted to express the concern regarding that. I think that, especially with governance in council, council resolution should be followed. I understand that the corporate governance manager has said that in the future there will be more specific language around resolutions. Now, my understanding is that council resolutions are decided by council, by the strategic arm of council, not the organisation. So I don't think, at least I'm not expecting the organisation to be able to uphold that commitment, because a resolution is passed by the strategic arm and it's not within the curfew and the power of the organisation to set council resolutions. That's what the politicians set. So I'd like to thank the council officers for bringing this late report back, for setting a timeline of next committee round for us to have a full discussion on it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this turns out, because I think having a better procedure in place will really help me to, and I'm sure other councillors, to engage with their community more and to be a bit more in line with what the community expects. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to move when appropriate.
Thank you, Jacob. I've noted that you're happy to move, but I've just got Councillor Bradley and Councillor Stemp as well. Councillor Stemp, did you still want to talk? Yes. Okay, Councillor Bradley, thank you.
Thank you. My apologies that I packed everything up because I've got to go to an off-site meeting, but I'm just curious what the promotional items are referring to. I'm not sure if it's a question to Councillor Jeremiah, but it'll determine my vote.
Councillor Bradley, I believe it's for divisional things like pop-up banners, all that sort of stuff. Does that answer your question?
Not really. I thought we already had pop-up banners.
This will mean that it'll have like the divisional information on those as well.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Councillor Stemp?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to check, so the recommendation, is that option 2, or this is the recommendation is to, I'm just trying to understand, looking back to the report, this is option 2, that's what's been recommended?
That's correct.
That's correct. Councillor Wilcox?
So I was a bit confused by this as well. So you're actually asking us to pick an option here, so we're not actually taking all 4 options to the November round? Yeah.
Through the chair. So what the general business item from last committee asked us to address a specific section of the policy. So we've come back today with this report which does that. I guess what we're recommending is that, yeah, look, this is our thinking around that section of the policy, but our recommendation is that you consider it with all of the other changes that we want to make to the policy, which is a subject to the briefing tomorrow, and then a more fulsome report back to City Governance Committee next month. So we're complying with the GB item by putting this report on the agenda, albeit late, apologies for that, but what we're recommending is consider it next month.
So with that, so tomorrow briefing, moving forward, then we can have a full discussion about what type of promotional items that we can include, because it's not just banners, it's gazebos, it's pens, it's hats, whatever. I'm assuming that would sort of fall into it, and then we can have that discussion as to what would be in there, whether or not some of us, because we've actually gone out and we've actually already bought our own gazebos, because I've been trying to push for us to get gazebos since we got in, because the umbrellas were cumbersome and large, and that sort of thing, so whether or not it would be retrospective for those of us that have gone out and purchased and stuff as well.
They're probably all good questions for tomorrow's briefing. Sorry, Chair.
Fine, Robert. So this originally was raised by Councillor Jeremiah, and looking at the policy to remove the clause 3.12.1 from that policy. But they've come back to options today. Councillor Jeremiah is happy for us to delay anything until after the briefing and then that be brought back. So we're going looking at option 2. Councillor Bradley, can you hang on? I've just got Councillor Raven that just wants to speak first. Councillor Raven, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So just to be clear, the recommendation on page 7 of the agenda is that an amended expenses policy will be presented to the next committee meeting. So we're just voting to see it come back to the next round. We're not voting, we're not choosing options, we're not doing anything like that. We're just voting to vote on it in the next round.
Correct. That's correct.
Cool.
Councillor Bradley?
Yeah, thank you. That was probably more, that answers my query. I'm happy for a report, but what was explained to me was the self-promotional stuff, which would make me vote against. But if it's just a report, I'm happy for a report.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley, and we'll have further discussion in the briefing session on the 20th. So Councillor Jeremiah has moved this motion that is currently on the board. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hall, a second. Can I have raise of hand, all those in favour?
4.
That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, that concludes today's agenda. Does anyone have any general business for the Director of Organisational Services? None? Robert, do you have any for us? Thank you, councillors. I declare that the City Governance Committee meeting on the 19th of October 2022 concluded.
Madam Chair, I have a general business item.
Oh, sorry.
It's been
sorry.
submitted.
Sorry, Councillor Haramaya. It's difficult with teams, so please proceed.
So I've submitted a general business item. If it can go up the board, that would be great. So this general business item is about starting the process to dissolve the Procurement and Appropriations Special Committee and include the outcomes of the review that's already been taken place so the public can understand what the special committee has been up to and some of the successes. So I'd like to start off by saying that in the 2019 to 2020 financial year, Council's local spend was 18%. Now, in the 21 to 22 financial year, Council's local spend was above 42%. So that's a real credit to the council officers, to the councillors, and to local businesses in the city that a major reform has been enacted and it's actually improving people's lives right here in Logan. So the Procurement and Appropriations Special Committee was a project. The project's been a success. Now it's time to wrap up the project and push it back into business as usual operations under the Governance Committee. So this general business item is about starting the dissolution of the Procurement and Appropriations Special Committee. I'd like to thank Councillor Bradley, Councillor Bannon, Councillor Fraser, Councillor Stemp, Councillor Wilcox and Councillor Murphy for working on this over the past couple of years and coming to the meetings and really contributing. I think this was a great project. I really enjoyed working on it. And I'm sure that all the other councillors involved, I hope you have a positive impression of our work. I think we did some great stuff. And looking back, I'm really proud of some of these reforms that we enacted. And although they're governance and a bit statistics based, I think it's great local news and a real credit to this council. So I'm happy to move this motion. It's about starting the process to dissolve the special committee and including a previous review of the special committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Haramaya. I agree. You have done a spectacular job as the chairperson for that committee. To increase the buy for our local businesses has been an awesome outcome for us. I'm happy to second that. Could I please get a show of hands? All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously, noting that Councillor Kransky and Councillor Bradley have both left the room as well. Thank you, Councillor Haramaya. So that concludes today's agenda. Does anybody have any general business left for the Director? No? Robert, for us? No, thank you. So I declare the City Governance Committee meeting of the 19th of October 2022 concluded at 12:25. Thank you for your time today and patience.